Hello, welcome. So this isn't without precedent, but YouTube tells me that no one is watching the stream. That's okay because they get archived, so people can watch them later if they want. Oh, it says there's one person in there. Okay, cool. But yeah, I have conducted streams with 0 people watching before. They didn't go very long. They went like 20, 30 minutes, but we have fun. I feel like I just did one of these. Not to say that this one came around too fast, but I'm always disappointed when I haven't. Um, there's like 3 phases to each video that I make. There's the writing, the filming, and the editing. Um, and I'm always ticked when it takes me more than a month to progress to the next stage. I was writing the next video during the last stream, and I'm still writing it now. Although I do think I approached a first completed draft today. Um, like I might read it tomorrow and decide, yeah, this is the first draft, and I just need to edit it. And I'm hoping it's 15 pages long, which will translate into about like an hour and 20, an hour and 25 minutes. Um, so that might be the longest video I've ever made. But I do plan on when I edit it, I fully expect the length to go down. Because it's basically like I set out to describe like the 6 methods of getting a dinosaur on camera, and it turned into a history of each method, which wasn't the original intention of the project. And it's not like it's boring, and it's not like it's not interesting, but it is trivia. Like for and like I love trivia. Don't get me wrong, trivia is fantastic. I love trivia nights at bars. I'm a trivia hound. But if it's already available on the internet and specifically on YouTube, um, I tend not to. Um, it needs to meet a higher burden of why should this thing exist. It can't just be trivia dumping, and there is analysis in there. But anyway, point is, I need to go back and decide should the history be quite this thorough. um, do we need to talk about every single significant example of every single effects technique in chronological order, explaining who made it and when and what was going on in the industry at the time? Um, or does it just need to be a discussion of the technique of just the special effects techniques themselves, uh, with ample examples provided through clips? I will figure it out when as I rewrite it, and that's where the script is at right now. Might be what I'm getting at is that it's one of the only scripts that, having completed a first draft and moving on to the editing stage, I expect it to actually get a little bit shorter as opposed to much longer. Anyway, but once I decide the first draft is done, I'll post it. And of course, once the first draft is done, rewriting it goes a lot quicker than creating the first draft. Creating the first draft always takes the longest. So anyway, I don't think it's going to be. It's not going to be done by the end of June, no matter how much I cut. Which was my original plan to have it done by June. At this point, I think I'll be lucky to get it out in July. With apologies, I hate that it takes this long to make videos. In another universe where I'm doing this full time, I'm releasing 1 new video a month. But I'm not there yet. Anyway, but it's been really fun. It's been I don't know if anybody like tracks what I'm doing on Letterboxd, but I've been watching a lot of new to me dinosaur films lately as I research all of these special effects methods. Um, and that's been fun. I even took out my old spec script with dinosaurs in it that I wrote in like 2011, and I knew it needed a rewrite, but I didn't know how to fix the particular problems in the script. And I picked it up just 2 weeks ago, and I was like, I think I could finally come back and give this the rewrite it needs to fix it, and then I'd have a dinosaur script to show to like send out. which is exciting. I have lots of ideas and motivation. The thing I don't have is time. Um, I got a day job, just like 99% of everybody. Um, which that's 9 hours, no, 10 hours of the day. It's 8 hours of work plus a 1 hour lunch break plus half an hour there and back for the commute. So 10 hours, 50 hours a week is just not going to be working on anything creative. Um, anyway, I don't mean to sound I don't mean to sound bitter or anything. I'm glad I can pay my bills. Um, but it's why the videos take so long to make, is that they're all getting more and more ambitious for me personally anyway. Um, I'm trying to clear higher and higher bars each time. Um, but there's just not a lot of time. I'm attacking these videos. I'm like snagging 15 minutes of writing here, an hour of editing on the weekend there, um, to get them done. Anyway, you didn't come here to hear all that. What movies have I watched in the last month? I promised I was going to open up this stream with a joke for somebody who loves my stupid jokes but couldn't make it. Um, um, this is I've definitely said this joke on previous streams, but most people have probably blocked it from their memories. But it's my favorite joke. Two guys are walking through the desert. One of them says, "Hey," and the other guy says, "Who, me?" So I can't remember the user who asked me to start this stream with a joke, but that was for them. Sonatira says, most of us don't mind a long wait time between your videos. Anticipation is good for us. Thank you. And I remind myself periodically, it's like my favorite YouTuber is probably H Bomber Guy, and he releases 2 videos a year. And like I would and I it's like it's exciting every time he uploads, but I would never dream of like thinking less of him by virtue of the fact that he posts so infrequently. He needs a lot of time between videos. And I'm trying to extend that same grace to myself. Anyway, it's part of the reason why I want each video to be something that I haven't seen on YouTube before, as a way to justify the length of time it takes to make them. Is that I just want them to be worth the wait. Um, which is a bit paradoxical, because in trying to write something that nobody has said quite this way before, it delays their release because I'm not just running through it. Anyway, I do have ideas for shorter videos, I swear. Videos that don't require, the thing that kills me is research. I love falling down research rabbit holes, and a history of the 6 different special effects techniques used to put dinosaurs on screen is like, it's like the perfect opportunity for me to get sidetracked. Um, but I do have less research intensive videos, which are difficult to come up with, because if it doesn't require any research, oftentimes that is what I think distinguishes my work from other YouTubers. Is that, like, I see a lot of YouTube videos that are just like, they're either just rattling their opinions off the cuff, or they're just like compiling they're just just they're not presenting anything that you can't find on Wikipedia. Um, and that's how they manage to get this stuff out so fast. And it's difficult to find a video that I can write quickly, which nobody else could write quickly. And I'm circling a couple of ideas for that. Like, I do want to do Learning from Bad Dinosaur Films Volume 2, which is, it's all just my opinion of a bunch of films, but they are films that maybe not a lot of people have seen, that I can talk about in an interesting way. Um, but it is also inherently just my opinion of these films. So I can kind of write it a bit faster and off the cuff. Anyway, um, movies. Movies that I watched in the last month. Nope, that's my watch list. I need my diary. Okay, so I watched this is one of those dinosaur films that was new to me. I finally watched We're Back, a Dinosaur Story, which is that animated film. It came out the same year as Jurassic Park, 1993, and it was produced by Steven Spielberg. Oh, someone has reported that my mic is clipping. Um, just checking to make sure I set the gain to the right level. Okay, I turned the gain down a little bit. Hopefully that fixed it. I'm just going to keep talking because you'd have no way of knowing if it was fixed if I don't keep talking. But yeah, I finally watched We're Back, a Dinosaur Story, which is one of those things that I know I'd seen it at some point when I was a kid, but I remembered absolutely nothing about it. And it was, I mean, I don't need to kick a film when it's down because it did bomb at the box office, but it's not a good movie. Um, I don't think that's a trade secret. It was designed as the kid-friendly alternative to Jurassic Park, but then every kid just went and saw Jurassic Park. um, so it kind of didn't have an audience, and then again, it is bad. There is no plot to speak of. Stuff just keeps happening. Scenes don't lead into the next. There's no character development. I would argue that there are no characters. There's very little is happening in the script because of characters making decisions. Um, anyway, didn't like that one at all. Then I rewatched Angels and Demons for the first time in many many years. Um, because so Angels and Demons has a special place in my heart because they Imagine Entertainment was finishing Angels and Demons when I interned there in the summer of 2009. So everybody was really excited about it, um, that it was coming out, that they had finished it. Um, there was an air of mystery around it because it was one of those projects that was so high profile the interns weren't allowed anywhere near um uh like the file cabinets that contain the angels and demons stuff. It was all under lock and key. Anyway, and then I watched it and I always really liked that movie. I mean, like, I know it got like kind of bad reviews. They're like, I don't I don't know. What do people say when they complain about angels and demons? They say that it's like it's contrived, or it's just there's no character development, or I don't know. But I don't know. I always just it's just a great little pot boiler to me. Um, it's the highest stakes trivia night of Robert Langdon's life. And we get to go along for the ride, and Hans Zimmer is banging out the keys for the score. And I always really liked it. And anyway, I rewatched it and I was like, yep, still like this movie. It's fun. And then I watched another dinosaur film that's new to me called Teenage Caveman, which is like it's one of those movies that it's not a good movie, but it's fascinating that it exists. It is Roger Corman at the very start of his career as a producer, in 1958. Uh, and it's like he cobbled together this movie from like a Spirit Halloween and stock footage. Like all the dinosaurs that appear comes from stock footage from films that were made 20 years earlier. It'll be like his actors will be walking through the jungle carrying their spears because they're all cavemen, and they'll be like, "Look at that! What's that?" And they'll look off screen, and then they'll cut to stock footage of two lizards fighting each other, and then they'll cut back to the cavemen, and they're like, "Quick, run!" And they'll run away, and that's that's your dinosaur scene. Um, but it does have like a weirdly ambitious twist ending, which doesn't make it good, but definitely makes clear that they were trying not to be bad, which was interesting. Um, it'll come up in the next video I'm making, but not there's not going to be any much analysis of any of the films that I present in my next video because I'm talking about the special effects. I am going to analyze um, the use of each special effects technique and what the advantages and disadvantages are and when they might be appropriate to use given the requirements of a scene. But I'm not going to be talking about like the what it means that this film exists necessarily. Anyway, um, Chad 5 Laughter says they say Dan Brown is a hack. You know, I never wanted to read any of the Robert Langdon novels. Um, Da Vinci Code, the movie, did nothing for me, and I really liked Angels as Demons, the movie, but it's over in 2 hours. I don't think I could handle like the 10 hours it would take to read the book. Then I rewatched Mildred Pierce, one of my favorite films. It's like the classic Joan Crawford from 1945, which I'd come to Mildred Pierce relatively recently in life. I think it was only like 2020 or 2021 that I watched Mildred Pierce for the first time. And I could have sworn it had been in the last year, but no, I had never logged it on Letterboxd, which means I hadn't watched it in at least 3 years. So I rewatched it, and I don't know, really love that movie. I subscribe to this Tumblr called, or not subscribe. I follow a Tumblr called "Have You Seen This Movie?" poll, and they just post polls every day, asking Tumblr either yes, I've seen this movie, no, I haven't seen this movie, or haven't even heard of this movie. And it makes me sad when they'll post an old classic like Mildred Pierce or Sunset Boulevard or Casablanca, and those no's are running away with the poll. I think they featured Mildred Pierce or maybe Gilda a couple of weeks ago, and the clear winner was like never even heard of this movie. And part of me gets excited because I'm like, oh my god, there's all these people who get to watch it for the first time. But then I get sad because I'm like, unless they don't watch it. Anyway, but Mildred Pierce is one of those that it's like a classic that most everybody has heard of. I shouldn't say most everybody's heard of. It's the people who know it as a classic. But not enough people have seen it. I don't know. I don't know if that's cogent, but those are my thoughts at this time. I watched a movie called Gun Crazy on Criterion, which is from 1950. And if I describe the plot to you, you'd be like, that's just the plot of Bonnie and Clyde. But this came out like almost 20 years before Bonnie and Clyde. It's about this couple. They're both enamored with guns. One guy was in the military, and the woman was a sharpshooter in a circus. They both love guns, and they're down and out and decide, let's put our skills to use and start robbing stuff. And they are ostensibly crazy about each other. And then the guy makes it clear he doesn't shoot people. The gun is for scaring people into doing what he wants. And his paramour is like, there are certain people I will shoot, and that creates tension between them. And that was a good movie. Then I watched a fascinating little film called The Primevals. I always want to hold up my phone and show the poster, but of course the glare on my computer screen makes it impossible for you to see it. But that's The Primevals. And it's in brief, it's a fascinating little film because it was filmed in 1994. And then they ran out of money. And it's an ambitious story. It's about an expedition that um, goes into the Himalayas to find the Yeti, and they find a secret jungle nestled in the Himalayas where these reptilian alien creatures live and um like kill Yeti for sport. So very ambitious, and it was all to be realized through stop motion animation. But they ran out of money, didn't finish the effects, and then um it wasn't until like 2021 that they got an Indiegogo campaign to give them like 40,000 bucks, which isn't a lot of money, and they went back and they finished it. They finally finished the film. So it has its official release year is 2023, but you watch it and it's like this was filmed in 94. You can tell from the clothing styles and the hairstyles and the fact that all the actors are now 30 years older. Um but anyway, it was a fascinating little film. Um with a like clearly a very old school aesthetic. But like the special effects, it's not like it's wall to wall stop motion. Um there might be 10 minutes of stop motion animation in the film, but it's it's a little bit of stop motion goes a long way. And it's what stop motion that is there is just so fascinating. Um really show-stopping sequences. Um anyway, and that'll get a mention. There's no dinosaurs in it. There's just these yetis and these little reptilian creatures, but it will get mentioned in my video when I talk about the future of stop motion and how it's still being practiced in what forms today. Then going further back, I'm on May 3rd now. I watched Sinners in theaters, which was as good as everybody says it is. Um, that will, I assume, that's going to make my top 10 list for this year. Because I haven't seen a ton of 2025 releases. I think I've seen like 5 so far, but Sinners was the only one I liked, and I liked it a lot. That's all I'll say. I'll defer to um, our um, our cultural standard of not spoiling things until it's like many years old. Uh, let's see. I watched a movie called Life Force from 1985. This is a movie that I'm going to attempt to show the poster. Life Force is one of these films that like I recognize the poster from like VHS and DVD boxes in like Blockbuster as a kid. And I didn't know anything about it till I got a little bit older. Um it's hard to sum up. It's Toby Hooper, the director of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, at the beginning of a studio deal that did not pan out well for him. He did make 3 films for this studio under this particular contract, but none of them were runaway successes. Um, and there are like each production was plagued with rumors that like he wasn't actually in a capacity to direct them. Um, and I don't think any of them were runaway box office hits. Life Force was people throw around the word space vampires, which is true, but it feels less like a vampire film and more like a zombie apocalypse film because these 3 aliens come to Earth and they start turning people into these when they feed on humans, they become these grotesque, wizened hulks, husks of their former selves who need to feed on others before they crumble into dust. And anyway, once I got old enough to hear about this film consistently, all I ever heard about was like, this is going to sound weird to anybody who's uninitiated with this film, but if you have heard of this film, no doubt you've also heard what I'm about to say, and you're like, yeah, people do mention that a lot. Is that the main character, space vampire girl, is on she's naked. She's naked for like 99% of her screen time. And that's all you hear about this movie. It's like the first thing anyone ever hears about it. And then you finally watch the film, and she's only on screen for like 7 or 8 minutes. It's like it's really not that it. And what's funny to me is that she's walking around naked for her 7 or 8 minutes of screen time, and every man who sees her is like hypnotized by her, right? And because ostensibly because she's a vampire and she can do that, like psychically or whatever, and then feed on them. But I just think it's funny. There's a metatextual commentary to be made about the fact that all the men in the film who see this naked woman can't think about anything else. And then when you start to talk about the film or read what people have written about the film, all they talk about is the naked woman. I'm like, did y'all watch the movie? Anyway, it's Patrick Stewart's first, not his first role, but it's one of his early ones. Anyway, I've been talking a lot about this film with no big so what. Um, it left me feeling a little weird because it's like it wasn't a bad viewing. I definitely wanted to know what was going to happen next because the like every 20 minutes there was a weird new plot development. Like uh they bring these three vampires back to Earth who appear to be either dead or in some sort of permanent stasis. Uh, and then 20 minutes into the film, one of them just like gets up, and she's like, and the first thing she does is she feeds on this guy, and he turns into this wizened corpse. And you're like, okay, that's. I wonder what's gonna happen now. And then like within 10-15 minutes, his corpse is still a wizened dried out husk, but it has a little bit of life left, and it absorbs the life essence of somebody else, which makes it stronger. But he has to keep feeding, and you're like, okay, wasn't expecting that. So they're not dead when they're drained; they just become like weakened versions of the original vampire. And then like 10-15 minutes go by, and one of these wizened husk people explodes in a giant ball of ash and dust because they didn't feed quickly enough. And it's like, okay, so that's what happened. Anyway, every 15 to 20 minutes, you learn a new rule about what these creatures are and how them and their victims operate. And it kind of makes you like I'm watching because I want to know what happens next. But then you reach the end, and once all the mysteries are revealed and they finally like flesh out the rules for this vampire zombie invasion, you're kind of like, okay, well, I mean, I don't, what all I'm trying to say is that I don't think it'll hold up on a second viewing. Anyway, I have not revealed all the surprises though, so as to preserve uh, the viewing experience for anybody who wants to check it out. And then going back to April, I watched a film called You Are Not My Mother, which is an Irish horror film about this girl who her mother disappears one day and then shows up like right when the cops start taking it seriously as a disappearance. And the girl is convinced that the mother who came back is not the mother who disappeared, which is a great premise. Love the premise, but it's just sort of lost me by the end. It wasn't terribly suspenseful, and I think it was trying to be suspenseful. Uh, I'm not really sure what it was telling me to be afraid of in real life, or not even telling me what to be afraid of. That's the wrong way to put it. Whenever I watch a horror film, I always ask, what fear does this want to help me process? And there's a little bit about like, I don't know, generational trauma or even just very generally like abusive parents, but it wasn't all there. I was having to do a lot of supplying my own meaning to what I was seeing. I don't know. It didn't blow me away, that's all. I watched Cleaner, which is anybody who saw my top 10 favorite films of 2024 video knows that I'm on a Daisy Ridley kick. I'll watch anything that she's in. And that included this movie Cleaner, which in fairness to the film, when I saw the trailer, I was like, this is going to be a bad movie. Um, it is clearly a shitty Die Hard remake, not remake, ripoff of she plays this window cleaner who is on the job one night when terrorists take over the building, and she has skills with a gun because she's like ex-army or whatever, and she's got to like and she has a loved one inside the building that she has to like rescue, and it's just really really bad. It's hard to distill all the complaint. Like sometimes it's, you know how sometimes a movie is so good it's hard to explain why it's that good. Cleaner is like that, but for me, for the opposite reasons. It's like it's so bad it's hard for me to even explain why. But the one soundbite that I can like distill my criticism down to is that instead of yippee ki motherfucker, which is everybody's favorite line from Die Hard, they have a character say bibbity bobbity bye bye. And anyway, it was directed by Martin Campbell, who's done some really great movies. I'm pulling up his filmography on my phone here. Martin Campbell did Casino Royale, The Mask of Zorro, The Foreigner, which I really liked, Vertical Limit, which I've always had a soft spot for. But he's also done a lot of really bad films, like Green Lantern from 2011. Dirty Angels, which I shouldn't. All right, that's not fair. I haven't seen Dirty Angels yet. It's from 2024, and it's with Eva Green, so I know I will watch it eventually. But I've watched the trailer like 5, 6 times, and I'm like, this movie is gonna be so bad. um, I will anyway. He directed No Escape, which was a mess. He directed Cast a Deadly Spell, which was interesting. I don't want to bash it too hard, but that one just lost me by the end. Anyway, point is, Martin Campbell is capable of greatness, but he also has some quite the impressive misfires. Okay, I'm only gonna do a couple more of these films. You guys don't have to. I don't have. I'm not gonna drag you through a month of me watching. I watched a movie called The Nest from 2020. It's a drama. It takes place in the 80s, and it's about Jude Law. Is this? He's this. I guess he's like a commodities trader, something or other, stockbroker, and he's found all this success in New York. And he's married an American woman, and he's got 2 American kids, and he's homesick for London, and he gets this job in England and then moves his family back over to England. And then as soon as they get there, things start to unravel. He's been lying about why he wanted to go back. He's been lying about how much money he's making doing this. He's been lying about what kind of debts he's been taking on. And the marriage is starting to unravel. And it was good. I watched Conclave once it went up on Amazon Prime, like the rest of the world. And Conclave, I'd say, I don't know. I gave it 3 stars. It was not boring. I kept watching. I love me a good succession crisis. I love stories of succession crises, and I'm gonna write one day. But in hindsight, I don't think it was. I think it was kind of contrived. Um, I don't feel bad spoiling this part because it's in the trailer, but there's an explosion that rocks Conclave at one point, and in in the film, it happens at a moment when the character does something not great, so he takes it as like a sign from God. Um, and the explosion turns out to be like a complete, I don't want to say coincidence. Somebody does set off a bomb during Conclave because Conclave is going on, but like the timing of the explosion happening right when he's voting in a way that he shouldn't, um and then the explosion goes off, and then we find out that the timing of those two events was purely coincidental. I'm like, come on. It's just, the word is contrived, and it doesn't ruin a film, but it makes it feel less prepared and careful um and thought out. And then the ending, I hated the ending. Hated the twist at the end. It was so unearned, and it like pats itself on the back for like, yay, a vision of a progressive church. And I'm like, the Catholic Church is not progressive. It doesn't matter who's in charge. It is a regressive institution. I'm sorry you had to find out like this. Um, and that's why I wound up watching Angels and Demons at like 2 weeks later, is because I wanted, because Angels and Demons doesn't do that. They're like, there's a couple characters who are like, "Do you think science and religion will ever reconcile?" And they're like, "Dunno, let's see if we can survive the night." And that was my preferred treatment of that issue. Chad 5 Laughters. Is it Chad Slaughter? Is that what it is? And the 5 is supposed to be an S. But Chad says the writing of Conclave was bad. I enjoyed Movie Wise's critique of Conclave. Compared to the Council of Trent, those Catholics are progressive. Okay, yeah. On a spectrum of like Catholics, yes, there are definitely progressive Catholics. Absolutely. I just think as an institution, it is not progressive. What I'm doing is I'm Google, or I'm typing movie wise Conclave into my phone so I can look it up later. And the title of the video is "When Stupid Tries to Play Smart." That's brutal, but I look forward to watching this. My wine is warm now. Oh, and you confirmed it's Chad Slaughter. Okay. And then two more films I'll talk about. I watched a movie, speaking of Irish horror, I'm working backwards through my filmography. So I had watched You Are Not My Mother because I also watched this film that I'm about to talk about. It's called Frey Waka, which is, I guess it's Gaelic. Frey Waka. It is also an Irish horror film, which was I gave it 2.5 stars. That feels a little harsh. It really had me. It was not a bad viewing experience. I should probably go back and give it 3 stars because it was not a bad viewing experience. It's just it lost me a bit every 20 minutes. And then the ending, I really think the ending was like a cop out. Um and so it left me on a very negative note, but it wasn't a bad movie. Um anyway, it's about this she's an in-home care worker who is called out to this old woman's house. Old woman doesn't want a care worker, but like she had to agree to this to like go home from the hospital or whatever. And because she'd recently had a stroke and fell, and they're just living together. And what happens is the old woman is telling her care worker more and more about um, they kept using an Irish word for these folkloric creatures that have it in for her, that have been after her, and she has all of these elaborate rituals and decorations around the house attempting to ward off them and their influences. And the caretaker, it's more complicated than what I'm saying, but the caretaker slowly starts to think that maybe there is something to her superstitions after all. And like I said, it wasn't a bad watch, but it lost me by the end. That's all. Anyway, I'm also starting to learn. I feel like I've watched a lot of folk horror in the last year or two, and none of them have quite hit right. I never know. Maybe it's an American thing, but like Americans don't grow up with like folklore, so to speak. Certainly not in the same tradition that Europeans or Africans or Asians or South Americans or Central Americans do. I just named all the other continents. There is no folklore in America really because America's so new. It's only been around for 200, 50 years. Um, so Americans don't grow up hearing about, fairies the way that Icelanders do or the Irish do. So maybe it's an American thing, but I'm finding it very difficult to connect with the genre to really dial in and take its concerns seriously because it feels like a lot of them are not trying to construct metaphors for anything that we might fear in real life. A lot of them feel like, what if a goblin wanted your baby, right? And it's like, well, okay, I mean, that would suck, but that's not going to keep me up at night. Anyway, Sonatira says, I visited the Vatican once and wanted to yell at them to return all the stuff to where they found it. That reminds me of my favorite line, my favorite exchange in Angels and Demons, when they're walking past a row of statues and all the statues have had their penises knocked off and fig leaves plastered on their crotches. And Robert Langdon sees that and he goes, "Oh yeah, Pope so and so's great castration. He unmanned all of the statues to blah blah blah." He's explaining that the Catholic Church um smashed these statues to pieces to try and conform to their moral standards. And the guy that he's with just goes, "Are you anti-Catholic?" And he goes, "No, I'm anti-vandalism." Which I always thought was a funnier line than people give it credit for. And I'll tell you one more film that I watched, and this goes back to about a month ago, Age of Dinosaurs, which is this. I'll show you the poster to show you what we're dealing with here. It's a silly little straight to DVD film. Even though it has kind of an impressive cast, they're not household names, but like Treat Williams and Ronnie Cox are they're character actors, but like you'd probably recognize them if you saw them. Ronnie Cox in particular was the villain in Total Recall and RoboCop. So there's like anyway, but I went in with rock bottom expectations because it is like basically a Sci-Fi Channel original movie. And I watched it, and it was bad. Hang on, I'm really proud of the review I wrote for this one, so I'm just going to read you these 2 paragraphs. I gave it 1 star, but I said, I think it's less helpful to simply declare this film bad than it is to utilize this film in order to confirm what isn't good enough. It's got a perfectly good premise, basically Die Hard with dinosaurs, and some very fine actors who give it their all, but absolutely nothing will overcome a script this contrived. Whenever something needs to happen in order to advance the plot, it simply happens, without any effort or cost to any of the characters who are supposed to make it to the next scene alive. I laughed out loud when Jade said, "I've got to find my dad," and then he literally popped into the stairwell 2 seconds later. Yeah, so it's like I swear I don't have fun trashing films. I like using bad films to discuss how they could be better. In good faith. That's my intent anyway. And oftentimes I think you can learn more about how to make a good movie by watching a bad one. Um, and like this film, it's too contrived. It's like this company has been growing dinosaurs in like downtown LA at their downtown headquarters, and they bring all these people into their auditorium for like a shareholders meeting to unveil them. And all the dinosaurs are revealed, and they're behind these glass walls. And someone's like, "Don't worry, they can't break through that glass. It's been rated to such and such pounds." And then they just break through the glass, and there's no you don't you need to explain that. And I don't mean explain it as in like have a character stand up and say, "Well, I guess they exceeded the force pressure of da da da." But like you you're it's like in it's like, why would you give the audience this information? There are reasons to pull the wool out from underneath an audience's feet. Like that's and in fact, you're supposed to do that. You're supposed to surprise the audience. But telling them something just to reveal 3 seconds later that it's not true is you're not supposed it's I don't know. What am I trying to say? It serves no purpose maybe to tell the audience they're not going to break through the glass and then just have them break through the glass. Because it's not trying to establish the fact that like it because you can still do that sequence of events and have it mean something in the script. You could be establishing that the character doesn't know what they're talking about, or that they don't actually know what the power of these creatures that they've created. You can do a lot with that sequence of events, but the script, that's not what this movie's doing. That's um it's just it's like an irony with no explanation. It's an irony for no reason. I don't know. It just whenever something needs to happen, it just happens. Um that's the best I've got. Anyway, Chad says most American folklore is Native American folklore. Very good point. There is of course folklore in the Americas. It's not American folklore, it is indigenous folklore, right? I enjoyed American Gods the book and the series as the discussion of American folklore, but it is not horror. I haven't been able like American Gods has been on my reading list forever. I've been meaning to get around to it. And then they turned it into a Netflix show, and I was like, "Oh, great! Now I don't have to read all the graphic novels." But I still hadn't gotten to it, and then all the this shit about Neil Gaiman came out, and I don't know if I'm ever going to revisit it. But I do hear it's good, and I don't doubt the people who say that. Um, anyway, the art is not the artist, right? And it's fine if you want to watch it, and it's not that I have a new resolve not to watch it. I just haven't gotten to it yet. That's all. Anyway, that's my film diary back through almost another month. There's other stuff I watched. Um, I'm looking for dinosaur films. That's what I'm doing. I watched At the Earth's Core, which is not a movie with a great reputation, um, but it's a fascinating. There's this actor who our generation's millennials, Gen X probably doesn't even know him, but his name was Doug McClure, and he was in a bunch of these cheap, campy Lost World dinosaur films in like the 60s and 70s. And he did like 3 or 4 or 5 in a row. And At the Earth's Core was in there somewhere. I think it was towards the early part, and it's completely forgotten today because it is not good, but it's this great cheesy camp classic. It's so cheesy and it's so campy. At the Earth's Core was written by Edgar Rice Burroughs after he had already done John Carter of Mars. And the plot is Edgar Rice Burroughs ripped off Edgar Rice Burroughs. It's like a cheap discount knockoff plot version of John Carter. Um, just they go into the center of the Earth instead of up into Mars, and there's this society there. It's these human looking creatures that are being subjugated by these taller green creatures, and the main characters are captured by them, and they're all thrown in the same cage together, and this one guy sort of like leads a revolution of the regular human looking people against their green captors, and he falls in love with the woman who's there, and like she's like, anyway, it's just it's a ripoff of John Carter but done with the the budget of a Spirit Halloween. Sorry, my voice is going even faster than normal this stream. I've been having this is my first spring in Minnesota, and I don't know if there's something different with the vegetation here, but I've definitely been having. I've never been a seasonal allergy person, but here I have been. Sorry, I don't think I'm gonna go much longer. Let me down this. Maybe this will either help or it'll hurt. Anyway, I come into streams with two topics ready to go, which is my next video and what I've been watching. We're actually kind of done with those. There's also the other thing that's gonna make the production of this video longer than normal isn't just the length, but also the number of clips that I have to gather. Usually I get away with ripping like 5 or 6 full films. But here I have so many clips to pull from so many different movies that I couldn't store that many films on my hard drive. And so I have to be much more selective about finding clips. Because when I need to rip a whole film, that's actually easier because I just start recording it, and then I can just set a timer and come back. But when I need to grab like 100 individual clips, I have to sit there and start the recording and stop the recording once I get the footage that I need, which is more time consuming. Which is why I want the script to be so good and say something important and interesting. Just because the time is so valuable. And not just the time it takes to make it, but the time it takes to watch it. If this thing is going to be an hour and a half long, I want it to be worth other people's time. They could go and watch a dinosaur film in the time it takes to watch me talk about dinosaur films, and I don't take that lightly. Anyway, oh, I'm catching up on the chat. The last thing I saw was Chad said the art is not the artist, and Sonatira pointed out, but it does pay the artist. I will say that whole debate becomes so much easier to deal with after the artist is dead, because you don't have to worry about lining their pockets. Chad points out that they got their copy of American Gods from the library. Chad asks, how much disk space does each movie take up? Is it full 4K renders? I haven't been ripping them in 4K, because yeah, that's way more data than a 1080p file would be. And I can see from my analytics, YouTube tells me that like 75% of people watch my videos on phones, which the difference between 1080p and 4K is you can't tell. I can't tell a difference on a screen as small as a phone. So I usually don't bother with a 4K. Someday I want to do full 4K rips. I don't even think that my capture device actually does full 4K. I think it does like fake 4K, where it either like upscales it, or there's a resolution that's close to 4K, but it's like a couple hundred pixels short. Anyway, it's a lot more disk space. a 4K versus a 1080p. Sonatira says the Princess of Mars wasn't my favorite. Normal Man is suddenly a superhero because different gravity and everyone loves him. Feels like it's aimed at a specific demographic that isn't me. Yeah, it's. I remember reading Princess of Mars um, in 2012 when John Carter was coming out, and it was. I remember it's not a long book, and stuff does keep happening, but it was kind of a slog for me too because it was so episodic. It was so clearly just supposed to be like this. I remember an interview with Andrew Stanton, who wrote and directed John Carter, and he was describing the appeal of the book to him as a child, and he was like, "It's the coolest guy with the coolest powers, who has the coolest girlfriend and the coolest best friend and the coolest dog, and they all save the planet together." And that was just so great. And I'm like, sure, it's a great children's story. Do you got anything meatier for the adults to chew on? And I do think John Carter, the film, does have meatier substance to it than the book. But yeah, Princess of Mars, it's the only Edgar Rice Burroughs book I've ever read, and I was not terribly impressed. And after I read it, I found out that he was like a eugenicist, like an explicit like white people are genetically superior to all the other races, and it's why and that is the message he was specifically trying to communicate with Tarzan. And once you start looking at his other work, it's like, yeah, this infected more than just Tarzan. Um, anyway, um, he was, of course, writing at a different time. He sort of founded a genre which other artists have picked up and run with and done some very fascinating things with it. But yeah, his work, um, I think the John Carter film sort of missed the window to adapt that book for a willing audience because there's been 100 years to improve on it, 113 years to improve on it and make it more meaningful um, to anyone older than the age of 10. And that's my blurb on Edgar Rice Burroughs. Randomly, that makes me think I should. One of the few animated Disney films that I've never actually seen all the way through is Tarzan from '99. I'd be willing to give that one a shot, but none of the other Tarzans. This topic's actually kind of been on my mind a lot lately because before I picked this video topic about dinosaur special effects, I was very close to picking caveman films, which sort of bleeds into the Tarzan genre, the Jungle Man, the Jungle Woman films, which there's a lot to talk about there in terms of like colonization and inserting white people into narratives that are, because the jungles are usually Africa. And it's these white people who grew up without society and yet without European society. And like, it's what I was talking about earlier. Edgar Rice Burroughs was specifically trying to communicate through the story of Tarzan that white people are superior genetically and that they are the cream that rises to the top of the crop. Um, anyway, Chad says, I apologize. I'm reconsidering my thesis now. Eugenics is not art. I did not know of his views. I thought it was general racism. Are you really doing a thesis on Edgar Rice Burroughs? I didn't mean to I didn't mean to throw you off, but yeah, that's definitely something to know about. Oh no. Okay. Okay. I can't tell if you're being sincere or not via text. Oh, I meant my art is not the artist thesis. Got it. Got it. Gotcha. Yeah, his wiki page says something like he was a eugenicist, um, and his Wikipedia has a very weird way of saying it. It's like he was a eugenicist, which the Nazis also were, although he was vocally anti-Nazi. his eugenics beliefs were very in line with many other common American thinkers of the time. And it's like, yeah, it was a shitty time in history. um, anyway, anyway, um, I, I, my throat is killing me. I always feel terrible when I cut the streams off at an hour. Um, I always want to keep going. I feel like you guys deserve more time with me, but and I deserve more time with you. This has been fascinating, especially the last 10 minutes. But I don't know, for whatever reason, my throat can't make it much farther past an hour. Anyway, I want to thank you for tuning in for um to do what's it called? Giving me an hour of your Friday night, which is very cool, a very cool thing for you to do, I think. And um if I can buckle down and I can get all my chores done quickly that I need to get out of the way, I hope to post the finished draft of the script for my next video by the end of this weekend. I think the first draft will be done, and then I'll start gathering footage while editing it, and then uh, I don't. All I'm trying to do is to like give you a timeline, but I know I'm gonna blow the timeline anyway. So just know that I'm working on it constantly, and I can't wait for you to see it. How about that? And with that, I hope everybody has a great weekend. Thanks again for tuning in, and I will talk to you later. Bye.